From Nutrien Ag Solutions, I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Monday, March 4th, 2024. We'll get into it here. It's certainly feeling like winter across the prairie. Got a big storm system spinning across the area of low pressure, kind of moving into Ontario right now, but still have some of that vertical motion bringing some snow into parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, those strong winds wrapping around the backside. And then the purple shading you can see here, we don't have precipitation falling at the moment in these areas, but that is the bitterly cold air associated with this storm system that's wrapping around. So wind chills have been dangerously cold across parts of the prairie here, and that cold air is going to linger for the next 24 to 48 hours. So as we kind of talked about last Monday, certainly have the winter vibes turned on up here across Western Canada to start off the month of March here. We're looking at the radar here early on Monday morning. Again, the snow mostly tapering off, but we've still got this elongated area that stretches from northeastern Alberta, kind of through central Saskatchewan, and then down into southern portions of Manitoba. Pretty quiet in through this stretch, though can't rule out some flurries across southern portions of Alberta, and then we'll have another little kind of piece of upper level energy that's going to kick off some snow as we get into midweek, just in kind of isolated to scattered fashion, not a big widespread event. You can certainly see the cold air being dragged in across the prairie. On the backside of the storm system, air temperatures in the minus 20 to minus 25 range across much of Saskatchewan and Alberta, across the prairie proper. You get a little bit more balmy to a minus 10 to minus 14 as you get into southern portions of Manitoba. So this cold air is going to hang out for the next couple of days before we start a warming trend heading into the weekend. We'll talk about that in a moment. First, talking about precipitation, looking at the next week overall from the European ensemble model, a lot of what you see here falls in the next 24 to 48 hours. Again, that corridor from northern Alberta through central Saskatchewan and southern Manitoba. A lot of that is the Stirling system that's over the area right now that'll be tapering off over the next 48 hours or so. A very light corridor of some light precipitation, some light snow expected here as we get in toward midweek. But again, just a select few going to get in on some of that action. Now, as we get into week 2, not a drastic difference here. We're really going to be under the influence of high pressure for a lot of the next 14-day time period. And it's as we get towards the back side of that, kind of days 10 to 14, we start to bring back a look here that maybe says we could have some precipitation across the area. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But unfortunately, the next 2 weeks, not a lot in the way of widespread heavy precipitation, and then not also seeing, even localized heavy precipitation, unfortunately, not setting up in the areas that we really need it. So the next 7 days of snowfall, next 10 days actually here, but a lot of this falls in the next couple of days. Again, that corridor from northern Alberta to southern Manitoba, that is much of what falls in the next couple of days. And then you can see some of the spotty areas, especially the higher elevations from central Alberta into central and southern Saskatchewan. They could see some snow as we get into the middle part of this week. Now, here's the upper level pattern. I'm going to hit play on this. You'll see we have quite a bit of variety. The pattern continues to move on, and it's kind of a every few days on, every few days off type of pattern. Here's what I mean by that. Now, as this is played out once, I'm going to bring it back to today. Again, we're under the influence of this big area of low pressure. This is what, again, has brought the wintry conditions back to the area. We're bringing cold air in from the north. We've got vertical motion that's generating precipitation. We have certainly created quite a storm system, an area of low pressure that's brought in an area of heavy precipitation and strong winds, and then, of course, all this cold air on the backside. So this all adds up, a big trough over the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. It's going to be colder and stormier across Western Canada. As we play this through the middle part of the week, you can kind of see here we start to lose that look. We bring high pressure in as we get into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That is going to be quieting conditions down as far as precipitation goes, probably going to be bringing in some fair skies and eventually some more mild temperatures. Now, as we get into the early part of next week, this is around March 10th, 11th, and 12th. This is when we kind of open the door back up for at least some precipitation across the region. As it stands right now, this is not a great look for generating another big widespread event. This would open us up to more in the way of these smaller disturbances kind of rounding the base of this trough and then moving into the prairie. So it's good that we'll have the opportunity here as we get into the second week of March to bring in some scattered precipitation opportunities. But right now I'm not seeing anything that makes me say, hey, between these 2 days, we've got a big storm coming. It's just this is a window to get something coming through the prairie. It's also going to keep those mild temperatures going. And then as we get into the middle part of week 2, this is now March 13th, 14th, and 15th, we start to build a strong signal for an area of high pressure across western Canada once again. And this would again open us up to mild, dry conditions across the prairie as we get into mid-month. This is March 15th is what this forecast graphic would be good for. So we know that we're out here in days 12 through 14. We're starting to lose some confidence, but this is certainly a loud signal for high pressure across western Canada instead of having another, round of low pressure across the region. So that's kind of what we've got over the next 2 weeks. As I kind of look at this step by step, watching the pattern flip around. Present day, big trough across the region. It's cold, it's snowy in some areas. It very much feels like winter. As we get into the weekend, this being March 9th and 10th, turning mild again, high pressure across the region, quiet conditions. As we get into the early and middle part of next week, kind of the days surrounding March 12th, 13th, 14th, we open the door up to at least scattered opportunities for some precipitation. And then as we get into the following weekend, again, March 16th and 17th, we're building a case for high pressure, again, mild, dry conditions across the prairie. So as we look for moisture, that is the story across the prairie right now. Where are we going to get moisture and when will it be? Over the next 14 days, your opportunity it's fading over the next 24 to 48 hours, and then it's back again early next week. So kind of days 7 to 10 is when I kind of think you got your next opportunity for measurable precipitation. Right now, I'm not seeing a big signal for a high impact storm system. That certainly could change. So let's look at this verbatim. Let's see if it makes sense then with what we've just sort of laid out. We'll look at the European model, the precipitation forecast. The snow from northern Alberta into southern Manitoba tapers off as we go through the day today. We get this another little disturbance that kind of lifts across the border as we get into, this would be Wednesday afternoon. You're seeing just this very kind of light area of snow that travels just kind of along the border. This again is kind of Wednesday morning into Thursday evening is what we get here. Certainly not a lot, enough to add a fresh coating in some areas kind of along and south of Highway 16. This brings in high pressure then for the weekend. We are quiet Friday, Saturday, getting into Sunday. And then here we go early next week, days 7 through 10. Again, I said we open up the door to bringing in an area of low pressure or two. Right now, verbatim, the European model, not all that generous. It brings the area of low pressure, at least the first one in, across the Pacific Northwest into the northern Rockies, and then eventually has this storm system taking shape across the Central Plains. I keep clicking around here. Let me go ahead and get to the very end of this loop once again. All right, I guess I got to click pause once again. Thanks for bearing with me. This is what we've got here. The very last frame, day 10, the area of low pressure starting to develop here across the Central Plains. This would not be, certainly best case scenario for us across the prairie. We would want this to generate a little further north and then maybe lifting into the prairie. So right now, that's what we've got. I'm spending a lot of time talking about the specifics of a storm system 10 days out because unfortunately the prairie pattern not riddled with high impact storms over the next 14 days. Here's your next 10 days verbatim from the European model. Total precipitation, again, a lot of that falls over the next 48 hours, and then that little system that comes in Wednesday, Thursday. We open the door up for some more precipitation early next week. We'll have to see if we can maybe squeeze something out, though, that's a little more impactful because, of course, this is not this is not the forecast we wanted for the first half of March. We'll go ahead and just say that. Your total snow over the next 10 days. Again, here's what sneaks through as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. That little corridor of very light snow, a trace to maybe a couple of inches there. As we look at the temperatures, of course, it's very cold right now, dangerously cold in some areas when you factor in that wind chill. We quickly moderate those as we head into the end of the week, and those mild temperatures at this point are forecast to hold on into the middle of the month. So your 10-day takeaways here, snow tapers off across Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, you do have that little corridor that could linger into Thursday in some areas there. High pressure mid to late week brings a period of quiet weather, mild temperatures returning quickly after this current cold snap here. You see it there in Calgary. Minus 15 for the high today, minus 21 for the overnight low. By the time we get to the weekend, we'll see those high temperatures once again above freezing. Same thing here in Edmonton. Saskatoon, you get above freezing as we head into next week. Same thing in Regina. And then Winnipeg just takes a little bit longer. You too will be above freezing as we head into next week. Have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you again next Monday, March 11th.